Apple became really famous for their slogan, "Think different." And in the realm of the knife world, there aren't too many brands that kind of embody this philosophy. However, there is one out there by the name of Quiet Carry, and I'm lucky enough to have 3 in right now for review. So let's dig into them. Quiet Carry came onto my radar back when they released their Drift model. And what really put them on the map was the fact that the Drift was one of the first knives that I think I have ever seen that was completely designed from the ground up, not only to be an excellent EDC tool, but was intended to be completely waterproof. So from using titanium scales to maritime hardware to Vanex as their blade steel, they thought about every aspect of the knife to make a completely rust-proof and completely impervious knife to salt water, which I thought was very cool and very innovative at the time. Now, given the size of the knife, it's a 3-inch blade if I'm not mistaken. I have passed on it, for the most part, mainly just because my double XL hands here it really wouldn't fit. It would basically be a 3-finger knife for me. Having said that, though, they released a knife called the Chase, this particular guy. And I picked this one up because even for it being a smaller knife, it fits my hands beautifully. And it features an LC200N blade. The liners on the inside are also LC200N. It runs on phosphor bronze washers and features the same maritime hardware that the Drift does, which is really cool. And on top of that, this just has a very clean, minimalist aesthetic that, for me, makes this a bug-out killer. Is it a fidgety knife? No, absolutely not. It's a slow roll only, although they have done an updated version with thumb studs, which probably makes opening and closing it like a little bit faster. But for me, this is my bug-out killer. I absolutely love this. I can take this to the beach. I can take this anywhere and not have to worry about it. And it's thin, it's lightweight, and it's slicey. And it's just my perfect small, in-the-pocket EDC for any and every situation. And you guys know LC200N is good to go. One of the next entries that really gained Quiet Carry a lot of attention, and if I'm not mistaken, it may have been their first knife, was the what was the name of it? The IQ. The IQ was a thin, almost candy bar-ish looking knife, but still also relatively small at just under 3 inches. And not too long ago, they released this guy, the large Quiet Carry IQ, which has the same blade shape, same hollow ground blade, but now is a fair amount bigger. And again, with my double extra large hands, you can see I can get a full 4-finger grip on it. It has this sheep's foot profile, which is really nice, but in classic Quiet Carry fashion, it has this beautiful milling. It has their signature 4 dots milled into the handle here and also on the lock side, and has this beautiful polished titanium. This is just a really, really nice EDC blade. Now, it's not particularly for me. I'm not generally a sheep's footy guy, but I can see the appeal with this. This is just a nice, slim, very lightweight carry that can do almost anything you need from it. And on top of that, look at that. They have the Chicago style, you know, screw heads there. And even on the lock side, there's only like 2 additional screws. You got one for the pocket clip here, one for the lock bar insert, and of course the pivot. I mean, this thing is an absolute masterpiece of minimalism. And one of my favorite elements of the design of this is the blade fits flush, but when you open it, you don't get this sensation of the blade being almost too small for the handle. This was a problem with the Boker Kwaiken. It's a struggle with this kind of approach. And let me grab mine just to show you. Typically when you have very like slim knives where you're trying to get the blade to be completely flush in the closed position. Oh, this is why I hate this knife. There we go. You end up having a blade that looks like it's too vertically small to fit within the handle. And that was one of the major problems, at least in my opinion, with the Kwaiken. It looks too short, and again, too vertically, it's not long enough and it's too vertically short to really be like nice looking. And as much as I really wanted to like the Kwaiken, there were a lot of shortcomings. Like you can see here, I have no traction for the flipper. I can't open it left-handed. For whatever reason, I can open it right-handed. It was incredibly heavy, and just, again, the blade to handle ratio, both vertically and lengthwise, were just kind of abysmal, in my opinion. Now, you compare that to the IQ, and this thing is perfection. I mean, really, there's no element of it where this blade feels massive. Honestly, I after handling this thing, I'm tempted to get the standard IQ because this almost feels like too big, you know. And while the sheep's foot is not for me, I really dig this, and I think it's a beautiful concept from top to bottom. And there is no element of this that is even remotely wasteful. Look at where the blade ends in the handle. I mean, there is like, what, maybe 2 millimeters there of space, whereas when you look at something like the Kwaiken, it's got loads more room before it gets to the end of the handle. So again, this is for me part of what kind of embodies the sort of think different quality of quiet carry. And most recently they released this guy, the 9, and this has been very, very popular since its release, and in handling it I completely understand why. First, you have this beautiful show side with the inlay done on the lower 2/3, which creates such a beautiful aesthetic. You have this nice, tall, flat ground clip point blade with a generous flat section before it transitions into a very graceful belly. You have thumb studs, which I'm always a big fan of, you know, and you have the signature sort of clean side on the lock side. Now, personally, I would have loved to have seen some sort of detail that mirrors the inlay from the front, but in handling it, I kind of get it, you know, and it's something that they did on the large IQ as well. You have the milling on the one side, and then you have the clean lock bar side. So it is on brand for them. On top of that, you only have one exposed Chicago style screw on, or head on the show side, which just continues the clean aesthetic. Lockup is beautiful. It is drop shutty. And look at this thing. Just a joy. And it's surprisingly lightweight. And I feel that that's largely due to the fact that the lock side is pretty heavily milled, and then the show side has this large inlay here that takes out a considerable amount of weight, but that doesn't negatively impact the balance. You see? It balances right on where the finger choil is. So this thing is just so beautifully done. And just like with the rest of the Quiet Carry line, they have this pocket clip approach, as you can see here, where it gives them an incredibly deep carry, but the tolerances that it's done with are consistently very, very high. You see next to no gap there on any of the models. And it's just, again, even with the smallest and the cheapest of the bunch, the Chase here, it's just done brilliantly. And that's one of the reasons why, while I only own one Quiet Carry, I respect this brand tremendously. Tremendously. A lot of their, if I'm not mistaken, their design is done primarily here in the United States, and they have an overseas manufacturer. Having looked at this stuff like deeper in person, I really have no idea who their OEM is, but whoever it is, the quality is phenomenal. I mean, the tolerances are just on point. The actions are just deliciously smooth. And really, I have not a single complaint about any of them. And who does LC200N blade and liners, man? Like, I don't know a single factory who manufactures or works in LC200N other than Spyderco, for God's sakes. And even them, they're shifting away from it right now. So I don't know who they use, but whoever they do use is doing phenomenal work. And that's why, again, as I started my discussion about Quiet Carry, where I was saying that they really do think different, I feel that this shows that. And if this isn't like compelling enough for you guys, see if you can get one in hand. Particularly this new one, the 9. It's so comfortable in hand. Look at, even with my double extra large hands, I can still get a solid 4-finger grip on here. You can choke up here. There's just enough room past the finger choil, and you have enough room with the sharpening choil that you can choke up, really bear down. Use this as a really, really, effective everyday carry tool. Don't mind that. But this thing is amazing. And if you dig sheep's footy blades and you like slim profile knives, definitely the IQ is absolutely, particularly this large IQ. This is a home run. Absolutely one of the best slim handled knives I've ever handled. And if you guys are looking for a potential bug out killer, give the Chase a look-see. I love it. It's one of my favorite knives of all time. And beautiful blade profile. Super comfortable ergos, even for a big hand like mine, and completely waterproof. Sometimes thinking differently works.